Just kind of rewinding that back a little bit. I mean, walk-ons don't make it to the NFL.
They all look at the measurements. They look at the speed, the height, how far you could jump, how fast you are. But it's like they can never measure what's inside of someone. They can't measure the competitiveness. What got me through that, it was, looking at it like that. I just want to prove myself right.
Welcome to Athlete Country Club, the podcast built for parents, athletes, and competitors chasing the next level. I'm your host, Marcus McMarion, former Division I quarterback, now founder of Athlete Country Club. I started this show because, like many of you, I had to learn the recruiting process the hard way, traveling up and down the state, spending thousands trying to figure out what actually works. Each week, we break it down through two powerful segments. First, Coach Talk. This is where we sit down with college coaches, director of player personnel, recruiters to uncover exactly what they look for when offering scholarships. No fluff, just the truth from people making the decisions. Second, Athlete CEO. Here we go beyond the field, into habits, training, and mindset that build elite performance and long-term success. You'll hear from strength coaches, nutritionists, sports psychologists, and former athletes who've turned their grind into greatness in business, leadership, and life. Because being an athlete isn't just about playing the game, it's about mastering it and building your legacy beyond it. So whether you're a parent trying to navigate recruiting or an athlete ready to level up, you're in the right place. Welcome to Athlete Country Club, where we turn potential into performance and performance into purpose. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Athlete Country Club. I'm your host, Marcus McMarion. Some people talk about greatness, and then there's rare few who kind of actually live it. I mean, Josh Hokit, fresh off his first professional UFC victory, is one of, the most relentless, just disciplined and kind of mentally unbreakable humans I've honestly ever been around. For 2 years at Fresno State, I watched this man train with an intensity that just didn't really make sense on paper. Workouts with no set count, just until I'm tired, then a few more. Today we dig into the obsession, the alter ego, incredible hope, the walk-on story, the mindset that lets him reinvent himself repeatedly. Josh, welcome to Athlete Country Club, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no doubt. And I kind of touched on a little bit in the intro, but you've always kind of had this just elite obsession with kind of chasing greatness. Where do you feel like that kind of comes from, and where does that stem from?
Yeah, I think, you have to set yourself apart. If everyone's having a set practice and, set drills that they're doing, you kind of have to have the mentality of like thinking outside the box of, what are they not doing? When everybody, goes home after practice and you're still practicing, it's like, in my mind at a young age, I always thought that's gonna, set me apart.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think like me and you, we both played for Tedford, and everyone who kind of played for him knows about, the standard, always upholding the standard. And what standards are you upholding right now? And what are your non-negotiables?
Yeah, when it comes to practice, I'm always obsessed with pushing the wall because it's like if I'm not, getting the in my mind, I have a quota. It feels like it's hard to describe, but um, I've been training long enough where it's like I kind of know what I'm capable of, and so when I don't do it, then I kind of go home and I kind of get down on myself. I'm like, I know I didn't. I cowered away or I didn't push the wall. And so every day in practice, that's what I'm kind of looking for. When I get tired, I keep going, and to me, that's kind of like the standard I hold myself to, kind of, or I try to every day. It's not going to be perfect, but that's kind of the what I'm looking for.
Yeah, no, and I think the big thing too, it's like I think that a lot of young athletes don't realize is like that's the one thing that's measured between you and you. Just your effort. I could run, I could act like I'm tired and huff and puff and make it look like I'm tired, but like you're at the end of the day, you're the only one that knows exactly how hard you're actually going, you know? Um,
Exactly.
and I think like I remember one time talking, I don't remember the exact situation, but I want to say you were running stadiums at Fresno State. It was the off season. I think I was coming in to throw with one receiver and you were coming down and we kind of talked a little bit before I started throwing to your head now. And I remember you were going to the weight room and I was like, oh, well, what are you going to do for your workout? This is when you're getting ready for wrestling.
Hmm.
And you were like, oh, I was just me and some of the wrestlers about to go in there and we're just about to do, I was like, oh, what workout are you doing? Like lower body, upper body? You're like, oh, we're about to do pull-ups and push-ups. And I was like, oh, that's what's up. And I was like, yeah, how many are you doing? He's like, I don't know, just till we get tired. And I was just like, bro, what? This dude's built different, bro. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, we'll just do 10, 10, 10, 10, and then get tired, maybe do 9, 9, and then go back to 10. And I was like, what do you mean you're not doing it? Like, you're not counting. So, I mean, you once kind of described that, like a workout with no number of sets, just going until you get tired, then a few more. I'm like, when
Hmm.
did you realize like you were kind of just wired a little bit different than everyone else, even in the foot compared to football players?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, when I was in high school, I didn't get the result that I wanted in wrestling, and it really bothered me. And I my mind was kind of intrigued or curious of what made someone get a certain result. And I think it was my sophomore year, and I was supposed to win state at 160 pounds when I first transferred to Clovis High, and I didn't get the result that I wanted. And my coach was like, "You got that result because you didn't train hard. You were talking." You were joking around in practice. And I was like, man, is he really right? And so that's when I had something so simple. It gave me a certain mind shift. I'm like, if I'm going to lose, it won't because of that reason. And so, I mean, what he said to me bothered me so much. I'm like, I'm going to be the complete opposite now. And so they can't use that excuse against me if I don't get a certain result. And then that's where it came to that's where I started thinking. I'm like, I mean, if this guy's doing this at practice and he's doing that, like I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z more than him. And so, and I kind of just slowly built off of that. And I know everyone's going into the gym doing a certain amount of sets and reps, but they're not training their mind. Like a lot of the training should be for your mind. We're training the muscle while we're doing sets and reps, but it's like what happens when you get tired, when you get fatigued? Where does your mind go? And so I started becoming obsessed with that type of stuff. And so all my workouts were kind of just based off of that, and I found success doing that.
Yeah, no, and I just heard a quote the other day too. It sounds like cliche, but it really is one of those things like you kind of hear it and you don't think anything of it in the moment, but it sticks with you for some reason. Like the guy basically said, some people show up to work out, others show up to outwork. And I was like, man, that's like so simple. But if you
Hmm.
actually take the time to dive into it, it's so true. Because I mean, we both had teammates at Fresno State to where like you could tell who's showing up. Like, bro, I'm just trying to get through this workout. Like, I don't even
Hmm.
care. Like, we technically did the same workout. Like, we both finished it, but maybe Josh hit his with such a level of intensity and focus, and he
Exactly.
pissed off for greatness, and he's lifting like it's the same workout but
Hmm.
completely different, like intensity
Yeah.
levels, like and then the intention behind it. And I know when we were kind of at Fresno State together, we were kind of both deep in our Goggins era, kind of during that time.
Mm.
You kind of got into that, and like how did that kind of shape your mentality at the time?
Yeah, because it's like it's easy for us to just get down and kind of have that victim mentality of like why things ain't working for us. And at the end of the day, it's like no one's gonna save us. And I mean, obviously, God gives us the strength, but we gotta we gotta take the steps. Um, and and that's the whole thing with Goggins, where it's all about mental, and that's why I started getting so obsessed with just the mind, where it's like because it's just easy to go through the motions day to day, and yeah, I wanted to see my limits. I just wanted to push my limits in everything. And in football, it's a little bit more difficult than to do it in wrestling because it's not an individual sport, but you can only control the things you can control. And so, I just really became obsessed with the mental aspect. And Goggins, I mean, he was all about the mental, and then because when your mental is right and your mind's willing to go far, your body's gonna have to follow. And that's the message that I got from him.
Yeah, no, and I think we both kind of took that message from Goggins while we were listening during that time, and I kind of nerded out and went on like the scientific side of it and started looking into it. It's like, okay, well, we actually have this part of our brain that's called the reticular activating system. It's kind of just essentially a filter for your brain. You know, like what you think about, you bring about. You're thinking about guys that are grinding or guys that are working out and guys that are just elite achievers in their field. You start hearing that different places. You start hearing those conversations. You start picking up on stuff like that, you know, to whereas if you're thinking, oh, I'm a victim mentality, I'm broke, I don't have any money, everyone around me is struggling, like that's what you're going to see all the time. Versus if you're looking for positive things, you're going to kind of find that in your life. And kind of the pros and cons to having kind of that elite mentality and stretching your obsessions and pushing yourself to the limits. I remember uh, just during my time, obviously hindsight's 2020, but kind of looking back, I remember being like, I was so laser focused that I probably wasn't the funnest person to be around sometimes. Like when I was
Mm.
like, do you kind of relate to that? And like what
Oh
happens
yeah.
when you go into that like dark place?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think about that now, where it's like I'm not like sometimes I'm not the most personable guy, and it's like I mean, I don't have too many friends around me, which I mean, I think it has to be like that when you're so locked into your goals. I mean, I think that's just life. Something has to give. The guy that has a bunch of friends is usually putting the effort into that. I mean, that's why he has all the friends. But so it's like if you put all your effort into that, then you won't have too much effort left to put into the goals you're trying to achieve for you and your family. And so, yeah, no, it's a healthy balance though, because you don't want to be that guy that's like um, lonely and all this other stuff. Like I mean, you need friends. They help you. They keep you on track. Um, and but yeah, no, it's a balance. It is a balance, and it's something that I think about it often as well. But um sometimes it's tough because we're so focused on what we need to accomplish, and you know but we all got to make the effort to find that healthy balance.
Yeah. And I think there's different seasons in your life too. I think that plays a big factor of it to where like I remember being again kind of just we spent a lot of time together when we were at Fresno State to where it's like, hey, I knew if I wanted to work out and I text Josh, if he wasn't working out already, he's down to work out, you know? So it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you have to have those people around you. And I kind of tell people today too when they ask like, "Oh, you went to that new, but like, how'd you go Division 1?" It's like, bro, I had three friends, Mario, Xavier, and Javier. They knew if I needed to work out, one of those three guys would go catch for me, rebound with me, run with me, lift with me. Like I had a core kind of group and saying that's all I
Mm,
needed. I didn't need 50 friends. So I got
exactly.
three dudes that are down for the
Hmm.
cause. Like whatever we need to do, they're down to go do. I
Hmm.
think it's just important to kind of have a village around you that kind of help you and understand kind of your goals and your mindset and kind of talk about that for a second before we kind of transition to the next kind of topic. But as far as just like how important is it to have a village around you that not only allows you to kind of chase that best version of yourself, but they know your goals and expectations. So it's not, why is Josh acting like this? Because they know what you're working
Yeah,
towards.
exactly. And so a lot of my friends, like me and you, I mean, we have the same mentality. So we're on the same wavelength. And I mean, a lot of my other friends, it's like they're doing some type of sport still as well. And I mean, if it's not my teammates in the gym, like they kind of understand the grind and the level of excellence that you kind of have to go about your day to day to get a win uh, in your profession. And so yeah, no, I feel like it's important because if you now you're having friends that they're off doing other things and they want you to go out with them, and I feel like they're taking a piece away, a piece of you away from like your actual goals, and so um that's hurting you at the end of the day. And so you got to be smart about who you're hanging around with. But I mean, it's the biggest thing, having a set of friends that are around you, pushing you in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think that's such like an undiscussed topic that obviously it's sensitive to some people, but it's like you want to have a balance and that's great. You got to make sure you take care of your mental health. That's really important, doing all those
Hmm.
things. But at the end of the day, it's like, man, like even when I played, it's like I didn't make it to the NFL. I didn't play at that level. I didn't make there, but like I was so hyper obsessed. Like I probably shouldn't have even played at the level I played at, but it's like
Mm,
I was doing everything in my possible power outside of football, studying film, watch. I literally come home, tell Chelsea what's up, give her a kiss, like, all right, I'm gonna go watch film now. But like it was like I was gone all day, just got home, said what's up for 5 seconds. How was your day? Cool, that's good. Give me a hug. All right, I gotta go keep doing more just so
yeah.
that I could stay competitive with all these different guys. And you almost have to kind of get into a almost like alter ego kind of situation. Truthfully, I mean, like Deion Sanders, you kind of think like he had prime time. McGregor has the notorious. You have
Mm.
Kobe had like that Mamba mentality. And then, I mean, even you, I mean, you have the Incredible Hulk. I mean, like, why is that alter ego so important to kind of have?
Yeah, it's like the ultra competitiveness is like heightened plus 100, or times 100. Um, because that's honestly, it's like I feel like that's the only way you get anywhere in life. Like it's like what's gonna set you apart from everybody else. It's like I don't think it's just gonna happen to anybody. Like just sitting around and sitting on the couch watching TV. So it's like you got to have that other side of you that's like willing to like dig down, and it's telling you like forget everything. Like kind of like the lone wolf mentality where it's like it doesn't matter, the whole world could be against me, I'm gonna find a way, push through, grind even when I'm not tired, or when I am tired, when I'm not motivated. You got to have the other side, because it's like I think a lot of us, because it's like we have two voices in our head, the one that's like, oh, you're okay, you don't need to, you know uh push yourself that hard, and everything's going to be all right. And then the other one's like, no, we have to get going, we have to do this. And I think we get so caught up in the peaceful voice. And I think the alter ego is like, no, forget everything. We got to dig down and find a way, like no one's here to save us, like the David Goggins stuff.
Yeah, no, and I was just recently having a conversation with someone too that my parents, obviously, we both have great gratitude for our parents and how they raised us. My parents as well, to where it's like they always raised me to be kind of like this humble, like real respectful, don't talk back, like, and all those very good principles to carry over into life. And
Yeah.
I have my own kids. I know you're gonna have your own kids here soon, probably,
Mhm.
but something I'm gonna teach my kids and make it a point is like, hey, you're always gonna be humble, you always be respectful, and that's always number one, right? You
Yeah.
never arrogant in a sense, but I wish my parents would instill a little bit more like be confident in your ability. You work so hard to prepare and get to this point that when they step on the field or in the court, in the octagon, the course, whatever they're doing, it's like I wish I would have had a little bit more of a I had it to an extent towards my career at Fresno State, like I'm gonna step on your neck kind of mentality, like I'm here, and I feel like I got it in doses and waves. In certain games I had it, and other games are kind of even keel, but it's like I was almost jealous of guys now looking back that were like had that alter ego. And it's like all the
Yeah.
guys that were the most successful guys that I were around, they had that kind of like, hey, like we're here to perform, dude. Like this isn't like a performance where we're just hanging out and it's a ballet recital and everyone's smiling and happy. It's like, dude, we're here to take someone's soul essentially. And I know you kind of touched on that too about talk about that mentality, just transitioning from kind of your team kind of sport mentality to when you transition to wrestling. Like you would say, like, I looked at the guy in the eyes and I knew he wasn't going to win. Like from that moment, like talk about that.
Yeah, no, that was always because I mean I'm with you on that. I was always like, stay humble, but it's like I think we get it caught up and mixed up with like um, y- being quiet, and like the humbleness is like gentle. Those are the same characteristics that kind of go in with that. But it's like, yeah, we don't train the confidence, and like and the whole mentality behind the confidence as well. But yeah, no, going into uh football into wrestling, it's like the mentality now looking back at it should always be the same. The competitiveness, the beast always has to come out. And so it took me a little while to kind of understand that, but it's a little bit harder to do it in football because football is more of a roller coaster of emotions. Like one play you're in, um, and then the other guy's going in. Maybe you get the ball one play, you never get the ball in the game, or something's going on. Maybe the left tackle's missing the block. He's making you look bad. I don't know. Um, Sometimes the games are slower than the other, but in wrestling, it's just you going out there. So I feel like it's a little bit easier getting into that mentality, or at least I found myself, channeling um, that side of myself a lot easier. But yeah, you gotta have that mentality um, when you're doing that one-on-one sport, because at the end of the day, it's like he's gonna if you don't dig down and have your mind right, I mean, he's just gonna take all your dreams, hopes, and dreams away from you. That's how I kind of looked at it.
Yeah, no, and I think for us, so obviously we spent those 2 years together at Fresno State. I mean, like, what philosophies from football do you carry into fighting today?
What philosophy? um, I mean, I would say, being able to execute at a high level, because it's like the football is uh, the longest play in football. What do they say? It's like 7 seconds on average or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
And so those add up, the 7 seconds throughout the game. And just like a fight, like you could win every second, or you're trying to win every 7 seconds is some type of game that's being played within the fight. And so I think, looking at it like that, where in football you're trying to execute at a high level, you're trying to execute at a high level in fighting as well. And so there's a lot. I mean, there's consequences to every play, just like there's a lot of consequences, eh, within the games being played in fighting.
yeah. And then on the like the flip side of that, obviously, I know having conversation with you when we were talking about when you're transitioning kind of into UFC and you're wrestling at the time, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna start fighting. You kind of compared it to football. And I remember you kind of telling me like, dude, like there's absolutely no comparison. Like fighting's the ultimate gladiator sport. Like you're stepping in the ring, there's no one to save you. You're by yourself. You don't have teammates to lean on. It's one man versus another man. You guys are going in there and going to duke it out.
Yeah.
Like as far as like from team sports, I mean, did team sports prepare you or like ill prepare you for the lonely world of fighting?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough to say, because when you're obviously when you're playing football, there's just all the eyes aren't on you. There's 22 people out on that field. Um, but I just feel like I said earlier, just executing at a high level when it's a high stressful situation. I feel like that's where I that football helped me the most. Executing on a high level when there's a lot of eyes on you. And so that's what I kind of really took away, just the high stressful situations. Um, and then because fighting is just its own beast, even compared to wrestling. Well, wrestling, it's like you're the only person walking on the mat. You don't got a team to help you. And I see fighting the same way. But I mean, in wrestling, that you don't got someone trying to actually hurt you, cut you open, break your bones, give you brain damage, so fighting's is as primal as it gets. And so yeah, it's hard to say what football, I mean, yeah, it's a
Yeah, no, that
tough
makes
question.
sense. And I think kind of uniquely, I was kind of looking at obviously all your accolades and stuff yesterday, kind of throughout the week and kind of checking it out. But you have to be one of the most unique athletes, I mean, in the world right now. I mean, as far as going from shout out Wasco to Clovis, Clovis to
Well,
Fresno as a walk-on though, earning a scholarship, going to the Niners, and then experiencing the UFC as well. Like just kind of rewinding that back a little bit. I mean, walk-ons don't make it to the NFL. I mean, like,
yeah,
what kept you going?
man, I mean, because they could see the the measurements. They all look at the measurements. They look at the speed. They look at the height. how far you could jump, how fast you are, but it's like they can never measure what's inside of someone, whether they got the dog, they can't measure the competitiveness. And I'm super competitive, and that's what just keeps me going. I don't like when someone says that they're better than me, and then when you get brought in as a walk on, that's basically what they're saying. You're not good enough to get a scholarship. And it's like all the best athletes, they have this type of perspective, ultra competitive perspective. And so looking back at it, I'm like, what got me through that? It was looking at it like that, through those lens of like, they brought me as a walk on. They didn't believe I was good enough to get a scholarship, and that alone, like, that made me want to prove everybody wrong. And so, and that's another big thing. It was like, I just want to prove myself right.
Yeah. No, I think just again, the mental aspect of it is something I think it's starting to work its way into sports and it's starting to get competitive. But I actually talked to a sports performance psychologist a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about it's like the guys that are at the most elite level of their game, a lot of them have coaches or they're just so in tune with the mental side of it that they don't share that a lot because they don't want to give away that competitive. It's like they know how important it is to be mentally just elite compared to your counterparts. And even I feel like when we went that year, 12-2, and we're kind of winning all those games, and there's a lot of noise on the outside, but it's like you're just so mentally dialed in and locked into kind of what you have going on day to day that you're not even listening to the noise. You're like, all right, we won this game. But even in that sense, it's kind of what you relate to is like, I've always known this about myself that I hate losing more than I love winning. And
Mm.
it's like it sounds so cliche to say like, "Oh yeah, that's a great clip, bro." Like it sounds good, but look, like I genuinely to my core when we would win, it was almost just an expectation cuz I knew again, like I talked about, I worked all week tirelessly, everything I could possibly do that when I stepped on the field, I wasn't surprised that we won. It's like, okay, nice job. On to the next one. Put it to bed. Let's celebrate it for a couple hours after the game, and then on to the next one. To where it's like,
Mhm.
I think having just kind of that mindset and that focus and like, what were you doing? I mean, even now, maybe, like, what were you doing consistently behind closed doors that nobody saw?
Like, physically, like working out
Yeah,
or
physically, I
preparing.
mean, mentally, I mean, what were you kind of doing? Because, like, I know for me personally, like, just for context, like, I kind of had a little game almost with Tedford and DeBoer. We kind of like show up like if we had to be there at 6:30, I was there at 5:30. I was showing up and I
Mm.
kind of like saw Tedford, we kind of give a head nod, and then it almost turned into a game throughout the season. Like, hey, I'm gonna show up 5 minutes earlier. Hey, I'm gonna show up 5 minutes earlier. And we kind of were just like, and then it got to like five. I'm like, bro, I'm not getting here earlier than five. Like that's just like too much.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
little stuff like that to where it's like nobody I never publicly said that in interviews and was like, "Oh yeah, I'm showing up an hour and a half before our first scheduled meeting." Like just little stuff that like what are some daily habits you're stacking to get you to the level you're at?
Yeah, no, now I'm kind of, because I used to really be like, where it's like, man, I gotta wake up at 5. I gotta, man, I was running the stadium before like a practice, or I'd come back at like 8 o'clock at night, like doing sprints. And looking back at it, I'm like, that probably didn't do me any good other than like just for the mental aspect. But it's like now you kind of have to be smarter about it, because I could try to do that all day. Where now I always studied, even at the that was the cool thing about going to the NFL for a few years, where it's like then you get to see what the guys at the highest level, how they're preparing, like guys like Fred Warner, how they're studying and showing up every day. They're not showing up super early, running sprints before practice. Like that's not very smart. So now it's like I'm just cutting to the chase. But when they do show up, they maximize. And that's the big thing that I'm on now. When I show up, I'm trying to get the most out of my practice. And now that includes how I'm eating, how I'm sleeping, because my practice monitors all that. It's like, man, if I don't feel it, or I get tired really fast, it's like, man, I didn't drink enough water. And so I'm really in tune of when I show up. I'm doing everything in my power to, get the most out of that practice. And I think that um, keeps me looking in the mirror. I was gonna say it keeps me humble, but it's like it's a reflection every day when you show up to practice and you try to break yourself. It's like, um, I mean, it's like you're looking yourself in the mirror. It's like, okay, now I need to do this, this, and this. And so that just keeps me coming back every day. And I do like to train in the morning, and so that's a big thing where it's like you got to win the day. And I think that's a big part of my routine is training in the morning, and then everything else after that's like cherry on top.
No, and I think that's a big thing too, and not to get it confused too. That's been a reoccurring theme with a lot of guests that are talking is about training more efficiently, being more productive, being efficient with your time. But I also think it's important to say that that's a privilege. Like you have to
Mm,
get to that point to where you're working more efficiently and working smarter, and then you have the right group of people around you to say, hey, because most people, I would say 95% of people, you're not working hard enough to start taking that mentality of like, I need to pull it back. So I think
yeah,
being realistic too, it's all once you reach a certain level, especially at the professional level, Division 1 level, even college. I mean, you start getting to the point like, hey, my workout's important, but it's also really important on what I ate before I worked out. What am I eating after I work out? Am I taking my post recovery serious? Like that's when you start realizing like it's not just the 2 to 4 hours you're spending focused on your craft. It's like what are you doing the other 20 hours is almost more important than those two to
exactly,
four hours you're spending um,
exactly.
doing your work and kind of doing that. And just obviously you've kind of transitioned from, I mean, the NFL or from wrestling, football, NFL to UFC. Like, what does it take? I mean, just mentally to walk into a cage where someone's trying to physically hurt you is the objective of it.
Yeah, you kind of gotta be borderline insane. I mean, because it's like you're walking in there and you know the consequences, but a a lot of the time, what I tell myself, uh, like because you there's nothing more real, I feel like, other than maybe going to war and like shooting the enemy, but like there's nothing more real in a controlled sense than an MMA fight. And so um, I know, like, you feel the weight of the world when you're walking in there, and then as soon as you get it, then the shackles come off. You kind of feel free, and then it's kind of like that roller coaster where it's like it just keeps going up, and then the drop to me is just it's worth it. Which the drop is like winning the fight or the outcome of the fight. Um, yeah, you got to be in a different mindset, honestly, and it's not for everyone. But I've been competing for so long, and I know when there's a certain level of fear that the reward is just that much greater. And so I always, remind myself of that. And when you put in a certain amount of work and then you get a certain result, I mean, there's no better feeling than that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I feel like the greatest rewards are usually right on the other side of fear. So kind of pushing through that's kind of its own just practice in itself. But kind of walk us through, I mean, the moment, I mean, your hand was raised for the first UFC win.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, no, it's kind of like a surreal moment because you kind of just see these guys on TV, and you never really sometimes expect, like, because if you told me in college that I'm gonna be a UFC fighter, you know, and then I'm all obviously gonna be in the NFL, it's like, well, that's kind of a stretch, but I mean, until you're there, it's like, oh, you kind of have to pinch yourself, and you don't really realize it happened until you look back at that moment. Um, but I'm not surprised. I know how hard I work, and it was a cool moment. Now just time to build off that.
Yeah, no, and I feel like your story and kind of athletic journey is just a testament to how important the mental side of it is and how just important that is because sure, your athleticism from football and things you've done, it does transition over, I would imagine, to some UFC to where you're athletic enough to learn things or figure it out and have the intelligence to do it. But not every football player can transition into the UFC side of things. So it's not the physical capability, but it's your mental kind of fortitude to be able to like, hey, I'm going to figure this out. I'm willing to push myself to the edge. I'm willing to collapse on this treadmill just to beat the person next to me kind of mentality.
Yeah.
But just kind of talk about like how important, obviously we've touched on like the mental fortitude side of things, but just like surrounding yourself. Obviously, you're at a very uh, notorious kind of gym at Jackson out there in New Mexico, where you're surrounded with. I mean, I think Gable trains out there with you, and John Jones. I mean, there's just a ton of guys that you're around with, and it becomes familiar to have success when you're around that kind of people. Kind of talk about how important it is, then why you kind of picked where you're fighting at right now.
Yeah, it's cool when you walk to the gym. Like the first thing you see is the pictures of all the fighters, and that's ultimately why I even chose Jackson Wink in the first place, because it's like those coaches. They coached all those the great champions that were on that wall with Rashad Evans, Holly Holm, John Jones, Andre Orlovsky. Um, the list goes on. Like everyone that was a legend of the sport, they all train at that gym, and I think that alone gives me confidence, and it's like it gives me a peace of mind of like these guys know what they're talking about, and that's I think that's ultimately why I did choose that. Um, on top of the altitude, and I mean, there's less distractions over there, but them in my corner, I think that just gives me a certain level of confidence.
Yeah, no, obviously that coach to mentor kind of mentee relationship is really important. And if you're lucky enough to kind of find a situation like that, I would say definitely pursue that in every way possible. But even talk about obviously the coach to player or coach to fighter, mentor to mentee relationship is really important.
Yeah,
I've almost kind of found that the peer to peer is almost equal, if not surpasses, kind of determining your level of success. So, kind of talk about just even just being around your brother all the time. I mean, he's a fighter. We were just talking about before we started recording that when you're away from the gym, you actually have people around you in your immediate circle that are still like-minded, and it's not like you turn it off and then turn it back on. It's like you're always on go and all ready to go. So kind of talk about how important it is to just have the right peers in your group as well.
yeah, yeah. Especially he's my brothers. They've all wrestled, so it's kind of they kind of understand the grind of and you're training 5 to 6 times a week. You have to cut weight, and then you have to perform. After doing all of that, and so they know that level of grind. And so when I could send them a text, call them like, hey, let's practice. And it's like, do they really feel like practicing? No, but they're so used to like showing up even when they don't want to. And it makes things easier because it's like no one really wants to practice, but you got to have those people where it's like, I mean, this is just what it takes. And they have that fundamental level of knowing, this is the type of work we got to put in to get a certain result. Because if they weren't like that, they're like, oh, do you really want to work out today? And then you're like, I don't really want to work out. Maybe tomorrow. We'll just go tomorrow. And then tomorrow shows up and it's like, well, you want to practice today? It's like, I mean, I got this and this excuse. My shoulder doesn't feel good. Let's maybe go tomorrow. And then it's like you're losing these days, and so that is a good thing where, I come back home and I have my brothers to train with, and because they know, what I'm trying to accomplish, and, they know the grind themselves.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something I've been hyper focused on lately to where again, I heard someone say if you skip a habit one time, it happens. You skip it twice, you're creating a new one. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, I was like, that's a fact. Like, man, you skip it once, it's like, okay, it happens, but never miss something twice because that's when you start snowballing into a bad habit now. So now you're skipping that good habit and now you're creating a bad one. But just with like all the young athletes, I think we live in such a like microwave kind of pressure cooker of success. Like everyone wants it now. I mean, you could order your groceries now, you could order Amazon now, be there tomorrow. Like everything's so quick and so fast. Like what do young athletes like? Young athletes want results without the pain. Like, what's the
Yeah.
truth they need to hear?
I mean, they need to. They don't need to be afraid to fail. I mean, I think they want success like immediately, and then when they don't get it, that's what turns them off. Instead of having the mentality like let's try to fail. Let's because that's where the biggest lesson comes from. When you go for it and you fail, then it's like, okay, why did I fail? Boom, and you try it again, fail again. Okay, why did I? Because event, I mean, that's just how life works. It's like you don't just keep putting in the work. You don't keep trying to trial and error, and then you don't get a certain result. Like eventually, you're gonna have to win. And a lot of the athletes, they have the perspective of winning immediately, and I think they just need to embrace the failure, and then and just go for it from there where and constantly learn from it. You can't just fail and then it's like you repeat the same habit and then it's like you fail again. Like now you ain't learning anything. But it's like if you go for it and it doesn't work out, understand why, reflect in the mirror, or look yourself in the mirror, reflect on it, and then figure it out from there.
Yeah.
But you got to keep going for it.
Yeah, and I think a failure is only a failure if you don't learn from it and grow from it. If you
Yeah.
continue to make the same mistake over and over and over and you're not learning from it, then it could be categorized as a failure. And I think just the name of the game at the end of the day is going to be consistency. It's like I could rattle off, and I'm sure you're probably the same way, 5 to 10 guys from fourth grade to eighth grade that if I would have bet money in Vegas, I would have put money on them and not on maybe on myself even. Like there's a couple guys that were like, man, this guy's just athletically a freak. Like they're way bigger than me, they're faster than me, they're stronger than me. But it's like again, that's something to where the measurables are only going to take you so far. If you
Yeah.
had to measure my mindset and my mentality, maybe I was way off the charts and they weren't even on the chart, to where, but
Yeah.
physically they were just like so far ahead at the time. So I think that's important for kids and parents to kind of take into consideration too. I guarantee I could call Kalen DeBoer right now. He's not gonna not offer you a scholarship because you didn't win your Pop Warner national championship local. Like it's not a big deal right now. I promise you. Like
Yeah.
if there's other kids that are succeeding quicker than your kid or your cousin, like just tell them to stay the course, keep going, keep showing up, and I promise you it'll eventually kind of turn around.
Yes.
And just for like parents, kind of talking to them for a minute. I mean, like what's in your mind, we kind of talk about failing forward and continuing to show up and consistency. Like, what's a real sign that parents could look at in their kids that, hey, maybe my kid has it, maybe he has something?
Man, I be coaching these kid wrestlers and they lose and then they cry. And I always find that interesting where it's like I don't know if they even know it, but it's like now it's one thing just to be a baby and cry all the time. But I like that as well as thinking that they care enough already that it like they get emotional about it. And now if you I think steer that in the right direction, I think that's very useful. Like I would look at how they take losing. Now, you don't need to cry all the time, but if it bothers them to a certain extent, that's a good sign. Like they care. And I would be looking at stuff like that, and then steering that in the right direction, making sure that never changes about them, and because as soon as the kid's like he's so used to losing, it's like I don't really care, I don't. That becomes dangerous. Now they're not getting the whole point of putting in work. They think hard work doesn't pay off, and that I feel like that's a scary road to go down.
Yeah, no, and that honestly, dude, that's such good advice because I'm actually going through that with my kid right now. And I actually had that moment where my younger son will beat my older son, or the older son will beat the younger one, and they get mad. And I'm like, okay, like I don't want to deter them away from that and like demoralize them and talk down, like, don't get upset, losing's okay. Cause I'm kind of like, man, I think we both kind of grew up in the era where participation trophies started to become a thing. And that's something that used to bug me. Like,
Yeah.
we don't want to get canceled or anything, but just as
Yeah.
far as like stuff like that, to where I'm like, hey, I used to have a friend, teammate in baseball. I remember we got second place, and obviously I'm upset. I have it. I'm taking the trophy home, and I remember he literally grabbed the trophy and threw it in the trash. And I was like, whoa. Like at the time, I'm kind of like, this guy's a poor sport, you know. Da, 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 da. But now looking back, I'm like, bro, he was a dog, bro. He didn't want to lose,
Yeah.
which it's like, again, there's certain times to display that. There's certain times to cry, get emotional. Like you could figure that stuff out. But as long as I feel like if you could bottle that and keep that competitive nature in them, I mean, that'll transition. I mean, whether they go professional and go play on the Niners, or if they're in the UFC and they make it to that highest stage, it doesn't matter, because if they could transition that competitiveness kind of edge into just the business world and every day, I mean, they're going to have such a leg up on everyone else. And just kind of with that, I mean, like, what do you think? Obviously, that's the truth and kind of keeping that competitive edge. But on the flip side of that, I mean, like, what's the biggest lie you feel like young athletes tell themselves?
Man, I think it comes down to them lying to themselves of what true hard work is now. Because I feel like some people, I talk to a lot of people, and I ask them, like, why do you think, this result happened to them? And it's like, well, I've worked hard. I still didn't get the result. And I'm like, now, what did you work hard on? Like, if we're breaking down the science of this type of stuff. Um, I don't know. I think a lot of athletes lie to themselves, and you have to be real careful about that. You really have to self-reflect. I mean, this is the only way you become successful in sports. It's like you got to learn from the losses, but the only way to learn from that is really self-reflect. And uh and I think they make the mistake of lying to themselves and saying that they're putting a certain amount of work in, and then they're getting a certain result, and then now they're turned off to the idea of working hard. I mean that steers people in the wrong direction, where it's like, well, it doesn't matter if I put in work or if I show up to practice, because I'm still going to get the same result. Like, that's a horrible mentality, and it's like a slippery slope.
Yeah, and I feel like going to a big time college, or even going to a camp in high school, if you're not on track and you're not in that time in your life, I think exposure therapy is such a big deal too, to where it's like everyone thinks they work hard until they actually meet someone that works hard,
Mm.
to where there's
Yes.
a whole nother level to that. And I know I just recently spoke to some of the top athletes in Tulare County. I got fortunate to kind of have a conversation with them, but it was almost an uncomfortable conversation in a sense, to where I was talking with them. I'm like, hey, like I'm gonna be that guy. Like I just want to explain to you guys the facts and the numbers of it. Say there's 100 of us in the room. Only 7% of you guys are gonna go play in college at any level, JUCO to D1. So there's only 7 people. There's 100. Only 7 of you are going, and then only 2% of you are gonna play Division 1 on scholarship. So I said that's 2 out of 100. So I had
Mm.
them all raise their hand who wanted to go, who wants to play D1. Everyone's all excited, raising their hands, this and that, and then I'm like, okay, well, Josh, why do you deserve a scholarship more than Marcus? Because there's only 7 of them. Why do you deserve one more than Marcus? And it almost got like real awkward, and like no one wanted to kind of like say like, well, I do X, Y, and Z, but it's like those are the uncomfortable conversations I think that need to happen. And it's like from a moral kind of ethical, nobody wants to talk about that, but that's the matter. That's what's going on. Like Josh is
Yeah.
competing with Marcus. There's only so many scholarships to go around. You have to go get it. And again, someone could counterpart and be like, oh, well, that's a scarcity mindset. And there's like, I get it. There's time and place to talk about all that stuff. And I read all that stuff and I'm into that. And there's enough for everyone to win, enough for everyone to eat. I understand all that and I understand it. But there is a certain sense of mentality that you have that, hey, nobody's going to take my food off of my plate. Like I have to kind of handle what's mine, kind of do that. And like just for athletes, I mean, like in that realm, I mean, did you kind of have, I know you had it in college, especially when you were wrestling. When did you kind of start thinking about that kind of mindset of things? Like, was that in high school? Was it after your conversation with your coach that one time?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you start, I mean, it reverts back to pushing the wall, because there has to be a science behind that as well. Where if you're trying to dig deep and put in this work, then your mentality has to change as well, or else you won't be able to push through. Like whatever you're telling yourself in that moment of when it gets so hard, your body wants to quit, your mind is questioning itself. It's in that moment what you're telling yourself, and that's ultimately how you develop that dog mentality, because because that's when you're breaking yourself apart. That's when you're exposing yourself. And so I think that's when I started working harder and opening my mind up to what hard work really is. Like I'm talking about pushing my body to the absolute limit. Not harder. It's not even about pushing harder than my teammate. Or um I mean that was the easiest thing to gauge, is like how hard is my teammates working or how hard my team working. Like I wanted to open my mind up to what is the what is the capability of the human body. And I think that's where I unlock the mentality as well, because you have to be telling yourself a certain something to even motivate yourself in that difficult time. And so I think that's how you develop it, honestly. I don't think it's, I think you have to do before you believe, if that makes any sense. Obviously, you believe a little bit, and that's what kind of encourages you to even go for it. But you don't believe until you actually do it, if that makes any sense, you know? And so I think that's how I developed that mentality. It was like I was putting in a serious amount of work in high school. And then I believed just from that alone, I was obligated to destroying people, in the competition just from that,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
No, for sure. And I think, like you said, the belief in it. And I think for parents that are listening or coaches, it's like there's not a crystal ball to gauge on how much a kid wants it, but there's certain telltale signs that you could kind of see, okay, this kid maybe wants it a little bit more than other people. And that's something that has to come from within. I mean, kids have to be intrinsically motivated, because if they're just motivated because, hey, if you score a touchdown, I'll give you $100. Like, okay, that's gonna work for a little bit. Maybe when they're like 6 years old, hey, I'll go buy you ice cream after if you score a touchdown. But there's a certain point where it's like, hey,
Yeah.
the carrot being dangled in front of you can't be the only motivation here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's interesting you said that, because sometimes, and I like how we're talking about the mind, because it's like you look at me, and I mean you could speak to this too, because it's not like you're 6'5" and like giant, strongest arm and all this. Like we had to figure it out. Like I'm not the biggest, fastest, strongest. You know, I don't look physically intimidating. So we went all in on the mentality. That's what took us this far. And so, yeah, you say the $100, and I wouldn't even say that's a bad idea. But then you always remind them what they did for that $100. Did they put in that work on that early morning? Did they push a little bit harder in that final sprint, because that's what they're thinking about, is that $100. Because it's like when I All American, I wanted to be on the podium so bad, and I got the trophy, and I'm like, this is what I did all that work for. Like uh, that's not worth it. This thing's a little piece of wood. Like it's not even a cool trophy. Has my little name engraved on it. It's like it's not even that big of a deal. But it was like the whole process. That's the trophy, and so that was the biggest thing. So it's like whatever you have to get your mind in that place. However you have to trick it. If it's through money, so be it. But you're always gonna look back and you'll be like, wow, the money doesn't mean anything. It was all about the process. And so, yeah, if you're motivated by the carrot, be motivated by it, but then reflect and like, oh, I put in a certain amount of work for this. This is what got me there, not the carrot. And so if you take the carrot away and then you just put in the work because that's just who you are, now you're getting somewhere. That's where it's all starting to make sense to you.
Yeah. No, and like you said, I think it's a fine line, and it's really important to have something that you're chasing after, and to stop and reward yourself every once in a while. Like you just had your first UFC fight and first win, and it's a big, and that's an accomplishment, to where it's like, okay, maybe you take a day or two, maybe you go out that night or the next day and you kind of celebrate it and you enjoy it. But then there's something about just, and I could speak for you because I know your personality and we're wired the same, to where I remember the day we made it to the Mountain West Championship and we lost. Literally, I might have took a day or two. I think we went out. It was bad. We're all sad. Everyone's hanging out, and then we started working out a couple days after. Like how soon? Like okay, you win your first UFC fight. If you could take a couple days off, but something about, like, even for me personally, if I take too long off, I feel sluggish and I feel worse
Yeah,
than of, hey, I just got to get back in my routine so I feel normal again.
yeah. And a lot of it's like I'm not saying that's like ego training, but sometimes you just have to take time off because then it's like kind of detrimental. I always take 1 week just for the simple fact of like my hand might be hurting
Yeah.
or my foot. But I mean, I don't put a limit on that type of stuff
Yeah.
either. You just gotta be smart about it. But yeah, no, after the fight, uh, man, it was cool at the Wynn Hotel. They gave me a table at the Wynn nightclub. But it's like how my brain operates is like I could even when I have fun, I'm looking around and I'm like, I gotta do this thing again. I need more, And so it's like it's maybe it's a blessing and a curse where it's like it keeps you, on the right track if you use it properly. And so, um, yeah, no, and that's all I think about after my win. It's like if my body's ready to go, I'm training. I need more. I need to get better. It's like it's hard for me to relax. It's hard for me to take more than 2 days off.
Yeah.
It really bothers me. But there's a fine line. You got to listen to your body. Now, don't listen to your body too much
Yeah.
because I mean, you take a week off. Now you're like, maybe I take another week off. I mean, it just gets real comfortable, real fast, and so there is a fine line. But you just gotta know yourself and know your body.
Yeah. And I think you're talking to the point too that it's important for people to realize that the worst kind of success is a little bit of it, because it's like you
Yeah,
get a taste of it and then you fall out of it. It's like, man, that's terrible. Like you got to be able to kind of hammer that, tuck it away, embrace the feeling, feel the feeling, and then kind of just feel it and repeat it and know what you did in your process to kind of get to that point. But kind of the last two questions I have for you, Josh, is just like, for you, I mean, right now on your stage, you're fresh off your first win. I mean, like, what's the next mountain in front of Josh Hokit right now?
man. I mean, I'm looking at the UFC title, the UFC gold. Um, but I mean, obviously, you can make little goals in between that where it's like you could be ranked first. And I just, the one thing I learned from the NFL is like not to be complacent. Now you get a little taste of like, man, you tell some people that, oh, you played in the NFL or you're on the 49ers or you're playing in the NFL right now. And they're like, oh my God, are you? It's like, it makes you feel good naturally. And so now it's like I tell people I'm in the UFC, but I mean, to me, I'm like, I'm not going to get close again and not accomplish what I'm here to accomplish. And I would say, obviously, being ranked first. And then, I mean, we could just slowly build from there. But I mean, my eyes are on the UFC title.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And final question, I mean, for you is just obviously across football, wrestling, UFC. I'm like, what do you want people to say about the way Josh Hokit lived his life?
And that he maximized his opportunity, like you could look at me, I'm not I mean, the most physically gifted, but I found a way every single time. And I think that's something I hang my hat on. When you count me out, or when you think I can't accomplish something, I find a way to accomplish it. I'll think about it. I'll think about it differently. I'll train differently. He maximized his life and everything about it. I think about, we're all gonna die one day. It's a sad thing to think about sometimes, but I mean, it's real, and we're all going to be on our deathbed. And it's like, when you're on that deathbed, what are you going to be? Are you going to be sad or happy that you pulled the trigger, or you tried to um, go for your dreams, or you didn't go for them because of some type of circumstance, maybe fear, or whatever's holding you back, like whatever the excuse is. I just don't want to live with regret, and so I just want to make the most out of my opportunities.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. I mean, Josh, I mean, today you kind of opened the door, I mean, into like a level of obsession and discipline like most people will probably never even be able to fully wrap their heads around. But I mean, you talked about, I mean, obviously just upholding the standard, kind of creating an alter ego, applying philosophies from team sports to the cage, and just a mindset that lets you reinvent yourself again and again. And I think your journey like proves something powerful, that I mean, like, greatness isn't talent, it's a choice that's made daily. So I mean, definitely appreciate you taking some time today, brother. You have any last words you want to share with the listeners before we take off?
No, I think I said my piece, I guess.
There we go.
Good.
Josh Hokit, incredible Hoke. Appreciate you, brother. Well, next time,
Yeah.
guys, appreciate it. This is Athlete Country Club.